Hey guys, it's Miss Hernandez. It's Friday, which means it's the last video covering the book, The Search for the Phoenix Gem and in-Questigation. I can't believe it. I'm so excited, but I'm also a little sad because I really love this book. And I'm so sad it's coming to an end, but I think it's great that we're finally getting to see her have her interview with Ian and Barley. That's the last thing we left off of. Sedalia got to talk to Laurel, and she and Officer Bronco took Sedalia to the police station where she is meeting Ian and Barley in Bronco's office, and she is finally going to have her interview. At first she said she was a little scared at first of asking questions, but she was surprised to see that when she came across Ian and Barley, her first thing was to ask if they were okay. Although she was leading up to just asking a bunch of questions, she was, for some reason when she sees them, she was very, very worried about them, so she just started asking if they were doing okay. They also got to have a sweet moment where they sang happy birthday to Ian, because Laurel brought back the birthday cake from her house to celebrate Ian's birthday, I think about 2 days later, so I thought that was just a little sweet thing that they added here. So we're reading chapters 21, 22, and the epilogue. So as you can see, my dog Socks is here on the making a little cameo in our video. So yeah, I'm really excited, guys. I hope you guys made some predictions, I guess, on how the interview is going to go. I'm wondering if you made any, what your thoughts are, any connections that you might have had based on this book that we're reading and the Onward book. So I know for sure Sedalia's main thing she's wondering is who is Shades. So she's referring to Shades as who we know is Ian and Barley's dad, but she doesn't know that. All she knows is that there was a pair of pants without an upper torso, wearing glasses, and they were, like, at some point they did have a torso, but it wasn't really real. So she is wondering who that is because she now knows it is being controlled by magic, but she doesn't know exactly, what's going on with that situation. So I'm really interested in seeing how they're going to explain that to her. So here is chapter 21. I know it's still backwards, guys, but I still like to show you the pages anyway. I will be making it easier starting next week on how you can see these pages. So hopefully you'll keep watching and you'll see how that will go down. So let's just go ahead and get started. I can't wait anymore. I'm going to show you Sedalia one more time. That is Sedalia. Alright. It was Sir Landor Lightfoot's 16th birthday, Barley began. Oh, sorry, Ian Dor Lightfoot. In the days of old, an adventurer of that age would have had his strength tested in the swamps of despair. I didn't know that, Sedalia said. It was quiet for a moment, then Ian spoke. You know that we lost our father, right? Oof, straight in. I knew, but I didn't know, Sedalia said. Does that make sense? Ian nodded. Barley at least knew our dad. I never met him. He passed away before I was born. Barley smiled. I knew him, but I was really little, like 3 years old. I only had a few memories of him. He started to count on his fingers. I remember he had a scratchy beard, and that he had this really loud, goofy laugh, and I used to play drums on his feet. Barley moved his hands over Officer Bronco's desk and rapped his knuckles on its surface 5 times. Then he blew 2 raspberries to punctuate the drumming. That was it, Barley said. I do have a tape recording of him and Mom, Ian said quietly. I've listened to it so many times, I've memorized the conversation. Sometimes I would even pretend that I was talking to him. Sedalia nodded. Ian cleared his throat. So it was my birthday, and just once, I wished that I could spend the day with my dad. Just once. But that wasn't something that was ever going to happen. Or so you thought, Barley interjected. Sedalia's eyes went wide. Excuse me? Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Ian said. Barley likes to do that. Anyway, Mom gave me a present for my birthday. Actually, it was from Dad. Something that he had left for me and Barley to open when we were both over 16. What was it? Sedalia asked. It was, Ian began. A wizard staff, Barley shouted. Can you believe it? A real wizard staff. Not some cheapo toy wizard staff like the ones you can get at Journey Mart. It was our dad's, Ian said. Because he was a wizard, he wrote a letter to both of us. It contained a visitation spell, Barley added. A spell to bring someone back, but only for one day. There was a phoenix gem wrapped up with the staff. That's an assist element, Sedalia finished. It's what you need to make a powerful spell work. Yeah, that's right, Barley said, impressed. So I put the phoenix gem at the top of the wizard staff, then I said the spell. Did it work? Sedalia said, hanging on every word. Not so much, Barley said. So I tried it again, and again, and again, and again. Couldn't make anything happen. So what did you do? Sedalia asked. It's not what I did, Barley said. It's what he did. And then he pointed at Ian. Ian nodded. Guilty as charged. Don't say guilty in a police station, Barley said. That's bad luck. And then you brought your dad back, Sedalia exclaimed. Yes, Ian said. And no. Barley settled in his chair and looked at Sedalia. What we're both about to tell you isn't for the faint of heart. Even the bravest warrior wouldn't be prepared for the shock we received. The shock? The shock of what? So the spell did work, but only part way, Barley said. All we brought back of Dad was his pants and shoes. The last big piece clicked into place for Sedalia in that moment. So Shades was your dad, and he was actually just a pair of pants. Yeah, that was him, Ian said. The spell was too powerful, so the phoenix gem exploded before the spell could finish. The gem shattered into 1,000 pieces, blew out the window to my bedroom. So after all that, you only got to spend a day with half of your dad? Sedalia said. That's so sad. Well, it wasn't entirely sad, Ian said. In fact, it ended up not being sad at all. Because we had a quest to undertake, Barley exclaimed. The phoenix gem, Sedalia said. That's why you needed to get another phoenix gem. Because the first one was destroyed and you needed a new one to complete the visitation spell. Barley nodded. So you took Barley's van on the quest, Sedalia said. Guinevere. Guinevere. Barley said, Guinevere's my van. Well, she was my van. Was, Sedalia asked. Barley sacrificed her when we were on the path of peril, Ian said. The cops were chasing after us, so he used her to block the path. It was only because of Barley that we made it as far as we did. Now she was ascended to the halls of Valhalla, Barley said. She was a good girl. So that's why I couldn't make it through, Sedalia exclaimed. I followed the path, but it was totally blocked by an avalanche. Ian and Barley stared at her. You went on the path of peril alone? Ian asked. Yeah, of course, Sedalia replied. You pursued this quest with the fortitude of a warrior, Barley said. Or maybe the cleverness of a rogue. I feel like it was cleverness. It was more of an investigation than a quest, Sedalia said. An in-Questigation? Barley exclaimed, clearly pleased with his play on words. I love it. Sedalia smiled. She liked Barley already, but she still had questions. One thing I'm not getting. You used your dad's spell to bring him back almost by accident. You didn't know what you were doing. Ian nodded. Not at all. I just happened to recite the spell because why not? What did I have to lose? But it worked, Sedalia said, looking at him. It worked. Yeah, Ian said. What are you getting at? Well, how did you learn magic so quickly? It's like you just became a wizard overnight. I think you did. Barley turned to face Sedalia and he wagged his index finger. He didn't become a wizard. No, he was born a wizard. Well, I had a lot of help from Barley, said Ian. He knows everything about magic. I helped a bit, said Barley. But it's said that a person can only do magic if they have the gift. And guess who has it? The magic gift. Then he jabbed a finger in Ian's direction repeatedly. But how did you learn everything so quickly? Sedalia asked. That's easy, Barley said. With this. He held aloft the Quest of Your Player's Guide and tossed it on the desk in front of Sedalia. She picked up the book and reopened it. Thumbing through the volume, she saw page after page of characters, relics, and spells, a world of fantastic magic. It's historically accurate, Barley said. Even the spells. That's why I gave it to Ian and told him to practice. And I needed the practice, Ian said. Later on, we ran out of gas. I tried to do the growth spell to grow more gas, but I shrank Barley instead. A realization dawned on Sedalia. The security tape. Wait, is that why Barley was so tiny at the gas station? I watched the security footage and saw that you could fit into Ian's pocket. I thought I was seeing things. Barley and Ian burst out laughing. Yeah, that was real, all right, said Barley. What a crazy night that was. The sprites chased us, so Ian had to drive Guinevere. We barely made it out of there. It wasn't funny at the time because I thought we were going to die, Ian added. But now it sounds totally insane. Barley ruffled Ian's hair. But we lived to tell the tale. And then right after that, Ian had to use the disguise spell because Gore Spectre pulled us over. Thankfully, I had grown back by that point, but my wallet hadn't. So we were going to get caught without our licenses. They saw a cult on the road, but the real cult was nowhere near the area. It was actually us in disguise. Ian was the front and I was the back. We had to do it to keep Dad from getting arrested. I knew it, Sedalia exclaimed. Your dad was the one in the puffy clothes, but the police thought he was Ian. Very clever. We thought so too, said Barley. But I'm still not understanding how Ian suddenly got so good at casting spells by the time he fought the dragon, Sedalia said. Because from what I saw, you look like a pro. What's the secret? Barley and Ian looked at her strangely. Secret? Ian asked. The secret is, you have to speak from your heart's fire, Barley said. Okay, and before you can say, what's that? I'll tell you what it is. Your heart's fire means you have to speak with passion. You can't hold anything back. I didn't know what my heart's fire was at first, said Ian. It took me a while to find it. Sedalia had one final question, but it was the one thing she was most nervous to ask. So, she began, what ended up happening with your dad? Did you finish the spell? In the chaos of the battle, I didn't see what happened. Ian and Barley looked at each other, exchanging sad smiles. Ian made the ultimate sacrifice, said Barley. He gave up his chance to meet Dad so I could say goodbye. Sedalia didn't know what to say. Ian was the one to break the silence. The dragon was coming after us. Someone needed to distract it, and Barley deserved his chance to say goodbye to Dad. It took his quest for me to realize I never had a dad, but I always had Barley. Oh, it's so sweet. Okay, that was the end of chapter 21. So let's go on to 22. Sedalia had nearly everything she needed for her story. Even with all her theories... Oh, I forgot to show you. Okay, chapter 22. Even with all her theories, she would have never guessed that Ian and Barley's quest was all a result of wanting to see their father. Sedalia couldn't think of a better reason for this adventure. Despite her lack of sleep, she was feeling good. Inspired, even. That all changed when she finally noticed there was a circular clock on the wall next to the door, and the clock said it was 7:42 a.m. By now, her parents would have realized she snuck out. I am so dead, Sedalia said, not realizing she was actually speaking out loud. You seem pretty alive to me, unless you're some kind of undead creature risen from the grave, Barley joked. No, I'm really dead. I have to let my parents know where I am. They already grounded me for being out so late last night. Maybe Colt could... What's that now? Said Officer Bronco. Everyone turned toward the door to see the police officer standing in the doorway with Laurel. Maybe you could help Sedalia get out of trouble with her parents, Ian suggested. Already done, said Officer Bronco. I called Sedalia's parents and told them that she was a key witness in the incident and we needed to get a statement from her. And I said we stopped by the house very, very eagerly and gave her a ride to the station. Then he raised an eyebrow. You did that for me? Sedalia said, incredulous. He did, Laurel said. I know you're doing your part to write a story telling the town about my boys and what they did. It seemed the least we could do for you. I don't know what to say, Sedalia said. Thank you. You're welcome, Officer Bronco said, tipping his hat. Sedalia laughed. I can't believe my luck. I know, right? But what I really can't believe is that you brought magic back to the world, she said, pointing at Ian. You did. You, the kid who invited me to his house for a party and then turned around a minute later and disinvited me. In all fairness, it was at least a couple of minutes later, Ian said. Anyway, I don't think we brought magic back. Not really. It's more like it was always with us, all around us. We just reminded everyone about it. He totally brought it back, Barley said, dismissing Ian's humble words. Laurel beamed at her two sons. Your father would be so proud. I'm so proud of you both. So am I, Officer Bronco said, even if officially I have to come down on you for destroying the school. He looked around at the sleep-deprived group. I think it's time we wrap things up and head home. It's been a long couple of days. What do you say, Sedalia? When Sedalia stopped to think about it, she was truly exhausted. She couldn't wait to get home. I think that sounds like a good idea, Officer Bronco. But do you think I could get a ride home? I couldn't borrow my mom's minivan, and my scooter completely died on me. Unless you know a spell that can repair it. Then she looked at Ian. Ian smiled. I'm sure I could figure out something. That takes care of that particular problem, Officer Bronco said. Now we just have to figure out what we're going to do with you two. Wait, Sedalia jumped up. I thought you said they weren't in trouble. That they weren't going to jail. They're not going to jail, Officer Bronco said, but trouble? They're already neck deep in that. They were responsible for the destruction of public property, including and not limited to the high school. I've already had phone calls, screaming phone calls from the school district, parents. Do you have any idea how much my ears hurt from all the screams? A lot, Sedalia said. A lot, Officer Bronco replied. See the cotton in these ears? He showed Sedalia the little wad of cotton in each ear. The only reason I have any hearing left whatsoever is because of this. So we have to figure out something, some way, for the boys to make some kind of restitution for the destruction, even if they didn't intend for any of it to happen. I'm sorry about the dragon in the school being destroyed, Ian said, but I wouldn't change any of it. Not a thing. Spoken like a true adventuress, Barley said. I wouldn't change a thing either, Laurel agreed. Officer Bronco nodded. Neither would I, except for maybe the people screaming at me. The room grew quiet, then it hit her. Magic, Sedalia said. Everyone in the room turned to look at her. The answer is magic. What are you saying? Ian asked. You, Ian, Sedalia continued. You and your gift, the magic gift. Couldn't you use your magic to rebuild the school? I mean, if magic was responsible for changing bricks and mortar into a fire-breathing dragon, and magic turned the dragon back into bricks and mortar, then couldn't magic reorganize and rearrange the bricks and mortar to remake the school? That's not a terrible idea, Officer Bronco said. That's an amazing idea, Barley said. We could do it. You could do it. He slapped his brother on the back hard. Ow, Ian said. Sure, Sedalia said. If you could use a spell to repair my scooter, couldn't you use a spell to rebuild the school? Maybe, Ian said. Maybe, he repeated, his voice sounding more excited. That might work. Barley, do you think that would work? Fear not, little brother, Barley exclaimed in a deep voice. Between us, we shall reconstruct the School of Destiny. He paused. But the question is, which spells would do the trick? Ooh, I may need to gather the fellowship. I think if we all put our heads together, we can figure it out. Shrub will have some ideas for sure. We probably won't be able to shut him up once I tell him. Boys, if you can pull this off, that would go a long way towards satisfying Principal Pipplemel's call for revenge, Officer Bronco said. Sedalia's jaw dropped slightly. Did Principal Pipplemel really call for revenge? She said, and I quote, Mark my words, Officer Bronco. Those Lightfoot boys will feel my wrath and feast upon my vengeance. For what they've done to my beloved school, they will know the pain of the elders. Did she really say all that? Laurel said, recoiling a little. Officer Bronco nodded. She was very specific. Yikes, Sedalia said. Better get on that spell, Ian. So it was her idea to fix the school. A short while later, Sedalia was standing outside the police station, waiting for Officer Bronco to come out and give her a ride home. She was glad to be outside and have a few minutes alone to collect her thoughts. The past couple of days had been unlike anything she had ever experienced, and her reporter's brain was trying to process everything. On the one hand, she was relieved that she had gotten a reprieve on the story, knowing that school was canceled until further notice, and that she had a few days' grace on turning in her article helped a little. It would give her some time to set down all the information on paper, collect her thoughts, conduct some follow-up interviews if she needed to, and then start writing. She looked out toward the road. A car approached, and Sedalia noticed the driver was Shorky, the construction worker she had been talking to just a few hours earlier. Sedalia waved, and Shorky waved back. I thought you had to work this morning, Sedalia called out, as Shorky stopped the car in front of the police station. This is me working, Shorky said. You get all your answers? She nodded. Not all, but most. Well, that's more than most of us get, Shorty said. Look, you ever want a job in the construction industry? You come see me, okay? I could use someone like you. Will do, Sedalia said, and she waved once more as Shorty drove off. Sedalia looked up at the morning sun and sighed. Hey, a voice came from behind her. Sedalia looked over her shoulder and saw Ian walk out the front door of the police station. I'm so happy to see them in this book. Hey, she replied. Come to see me off? I just wanted to say thanks for helping Barley and me, Ian said. I appreciate how hard you're working to clear our names. I just hope all this magic stuff didn't weird you out. I guess this is what happens when you hang out with a wizard. I mean, if you want to hang out with the wizard. Yeah, of course I want to hang out with the wizard. How cool is that? Sedalia said. Thanks, Ian. For what? He said. For everything, Sedalia said. For the interview, for opening my eyes. I always heard about magic. I knew it was something that had existed, but it was like a fairy tale. You know, something so far removed that it might as well not be real. But you showed me that there is magic in the world. It sounds corny, I know, but maybe people need more of that. Maybe they do, Ian said. They sat back down the steps of the police station, looking out where the school once stood. Now you just have to rebuild an entire school, Sedalia said. Ian laughed. Yeah, that'll be some trick. Thanks for sharing your story with me, Sedalia smiled. Said. Ian smiled. Did I tell you about the booby traps? Booby traps? Sedalia exclaimed. There were booby traps? They were only some of the most frightening things I've ever seen in my life. We had reached this place that Barley called the final gauntlet. Sedalia and Ian sat on the steps while he regaled her with more stories from his quest. And then it kind of... So, I never showed you guys, but these little diamonds break off like parts of the story of the chapter. So, it's doing that to say, this is now later. Sedalia, are you awake? Huh? It was her mom calling up the stairs. I am now, Sedalia said, sitting up in bed with a start. She ran her hands through her hair and blinked several times, trying to wake up. Then come on down, please. Someone's here to see you. Someone's here to see me, Sedalia said as she shuffled her feet along the carpet and through her doorway into the hall. Walking down the stairs, she was surprised to see Ian standing in the kitchen. Ian, Sedalia said, what are you doing here? I just left you at the police station. I thought for sure you'd still be there. That was yesterday, Ian, he said. Have you been asleep since you got home? Sedalia's mom smiled. As a matter of fact, she had been asleep for the last 24 hours. Anyway, it was nice to meet you, Ian. Sedalia, I'll be in the living room. Holler if you need anything. Thanks, Mom, Sedalia said as her mother left the kitchen. She sat down at the table and motioned for Ian to join her. Sorry, I'm a little fuzzy around the edges right now, Sedalia said. I meant to start working on the story when I got home, but I couldn't keep my eyes open. I just sort of hit the bed, and the next thing I know, my mom's calling me and now you're here. Yeah, I had the same problem, Ian said. When I finally got home, I went straight to bed. Next thing I knew, it was today. So what brings you here, Sedalia asked. I was giving it a lot of thought, and I think your piece should focus on Barley. He's the true hero of the story. Sedalia was surprised. Yeah, but you were the one who could perform magic. You brought your dad back. I know, Ian said, but I couldn't have done any of it without Barley. He's taken care of me, encouraged me, pushed me to be a better person. It's because of him that I even believed in myself enough to learn magic. And this whole experience has made me realize that all the stuff that I've been holding on to, all the thoughts and feelings and stuff I used to believe, just because the inner voice in my head kept telling me it was true, all of that, I needed to let it go, you know? And that only happened because of Barley. Sedalia looked away. She knew exactly what he meant. Her inner voice had been telling her that it was too hard to be a reporter, and that it wouldn't work, that she wasn't good enough. It had taken the events of the past 2 days for her to tell the voice to back off, that she wasn't going to stop, and that she was going to achieve her dreams no matter what. Sedalia hesitated for a moment before asking her next question. What did your dad say to Barley when he finally fully conjured? You don't have to tell me if it's too personal. Ian chuckled. He told Barley that he'd hoped his wizard name would be Wilden the Whimsical. That's an interesting name, Sedalia said. It's terrible, Ian replied. He also said that he was very proud of me, of the person I had grown up to be. Did he say anything else? No, Ian said, casting his eyes down at his feet. He just told Barley to give me a hug. You're lucky to have a brother like him, Sedalia said. Yeah, Ian said. And then he thought for a moment. I don't know why it took me so long to realize it. Of course, I'll always want to meet Dad, but I spent all those years wishing for him and never saw what I had right in front of me. Barley. Sedalia nodded. I'll make sure everyone knows about Barley. But I think you were kind of important too. I'll write about both of you. But I think when I'm done, everyone will know that Barley is a lot more than Quest Guy. Who's Quest Guy? Ian said. Sedalia laughed. Kind of a long story. So that's the end of chapter 22. So now we are on the epilogue. So this is the last chapter, guys, for the book. I'm so excited. Whew. A couple of weeks had passed since the day the school turned into a dragon. Nobody could think of a better name for it. They literally called it Day the School Turned into a Dragon. That's pretty interesting. Sedalia thought it was too long and not very catchy, but it didn't seem to bother anyone else. New Musherton High School was still closed. The students had been reassigned to various schools within the area. Classes were split up, but the students adapted and did their best with what they had. All the clubs and activities still went on as usual. The same went for the fortnightly dragon. Sedalia had surprised herself and Mrs. Nightdale by turning in her story only a few days after the event itself. She called it The Search for the Phoenix Gem. Mrs. Nightdale had thought for sure that Sedalia would need more time to work on it, but Sedalia was like a person possessed. Once she started writing, the words wouldn't stop coming. That's what happens when you tap into your heart's fire, Sedalia thought. Now the story was out there for all the New Musherton to read. Mrs. Nightdale told her that the papers had been flying off the shelves like never before. She said that the editor-in-chief spot was Sedalia's the next year, if she wanted it. Which Sedalia totally and completely did. Though she was happy about the recognition, Sedalia realized that writing about the truth and getting it out there for the realm to read was all the reward she needed. She was walking down the corridor of her temporary school when she spied Ian and Kagar coming up her way. To her surprise, Ian was reading a copy of her article as he walked. Hey, Sedalia said, right before Ian practically walked right into her. Hard to read while you walk. Hey, Sedalia, Ian said. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Standing there. I was just reading your story. It's your story, Sedalia said. Yours and Barley's. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. It's amazing, Kagar said, grabbing the paper from Ian's hands. This part right here, when they are on the path of peril. I can't believe it. So dramatic, especially the part about crossing the bottomless pit. That was actually pretty dramatic, Ian said. Sedalia nodded. I can confirm it. Considering I thought my minivan was going to fall right in. I guess you guys are pretty much heroes, Kagar said. You and Barley, except for causing the school to turn into a dragon. That not so much. Hey, let's be clear. I didn't personally turn the school into a dragon, Ian said. That was the curse's fault. Kagar said. And who unleashed the curse? Ian mumbled something, but neither Kagar nor Sedalia could hear him. I'm sorry, what was that? Kagar said. I did, Ian said in a voice just below a whisper. What? Kagar repeated. I did, Ian said, loudly, causing the other students passing by to turn their heads and stare. Ian lowered his voice, but Barley and I are working hard to rebuild the school. I think we've just cracked the spells we'll need. It'll require a lot of concentration and energy on my part, but I'm pretty confident that this will work. Sedalia smiled. Well, if all this hadn't happened, then people would have just forgotten about the old days, like they had never existed. And they wouldn't know what you sacrificed to save everyone that day. I guess, Ian said. I'm just glad that everything worked out. It only worked out because of you and Barley, Sedalia said. And your dad. And Dad, Ian echoed. The school bell rang and Kagar raced off to class with a wave. See you after school, Ian asked. See you after school. Sorry, I said it weird. That's certainly certain, Sedalia said, and she headed down the hall. Oh, and it has like another break right there, guys. So this is a little later in the day. Now, With the school day finished, Sedalia headed to her locker and grabbed her books and her backpack. She slung it over her shoulder and walked over to Althea's locker. "Another day, another disaster," Althea said. "They really piled it on today. I think even my homework has homework." "In that case, we should totally hang out," Sedalia said. "I thought you were the responsible one, Miss Soon-to-be Editor-in-Chief," Althea teased. "Oh, there's no question that I'm the responsible one," Sedalia replied. "But I still think we need to blow off some steam. It's been a weird time." "I'm sold," Althea said, grabbing her backpack and slamming her locker shut. "My homework's not going anywhere, unfortunately. But we are. Let's do it." As they walked down the hall, they were joined by Parthenope and Gurge, and the four of them walked toward the front doors of the school. When they got outside, Sedalia saw Ian standing there with Kagar, waiting for her. "Hey, you're here," she said. "Yeah, why wouldn't I be?" Ian asked. "So are you guys ready to go?" "What do you mean, you guys?" Sedalia said. "You mean like all of us?" "Yeah," Ian said enthusiastically. "I figured I owe you all anyway, considering my non-party and everything." Sedalia laughed. "That sounds awesome. What do you all think?" "Hang out with the guy who defeated a dragon?" Althea said. Yeah." Sedalia and her friends joined Ian and Kagar, and the group walked toward Ian's house. Sedalia and her friends... Oh, sorry, I almost reread it. When Ian opened the front door, Blazy was there, leaping right on top of Ian. "Hey, girl," Ian said as he introduced his pet to his friends. Blazy licked Ian's face and he rubbed the dragon's belly. "Behold," came a voice from behind the door, and suddenly Barley was there, leaping into view. He was wearing what looked like armor. He had on a helmet and a metal breastplate that covered his chest. In his hand, he held a sword. "Adventure awaits us all. Will you join me in a campaign of Quests of Yore?" "Is that Barley?" Althea asked. "The guy who climbed the fountain? The one who braved the path of peril and fought the dragon and got shrunken down to a teeny tiny size?" "He is so cool," Gurge said. Althea nodded and Parthenope gave a thumbs up. "Of course he's cool," Ian said. "He's my brother." Sedalia smiled. "So let's get questing," she said, as they walked into Ian's living room. An adventure was waiting. Oh, guys, that's the end of the book. That's so sweet. So, wow, that's like a pretty interesting. I wonder what you guys can share what you think in the comments, because I'm leaving them available now. So yeah, for me, I really like how this book really did fill in some holes for Onward. So I still have the book, of course. So I really feel like this book, like I said, it filled in some gaps, I guess you could say, about this book, and it gave different perspectives on it as well. And I'm just very happy to see why like public opinion had changed, because Barley was so, and Ian was very enclosed, and then at the end of the book, I think they discussed how he was talking to people more, and he was hanging out with Barley more, and of course the school was fixed. But they never showed exactly how he fixed it. They just said it was magic. So I was interested in seeing with this book how the idea didn't come from Ian and Barley to fix it with magic. It came from Sedalia. So I think that was like an interesting part to add to the story, Like this extension of the story is just really interesting because it takes place after this one, but before the epilogue in this book. So it fits in really nicely. And I just really love Sedalia. I love the new characters that we got introduced to. And I just really appreciate how this added a whole lot more to the book that we read. The first novel we ever read. So I'm so glad I picked them up. So yeah, guys, that was the final piece for Onward and, the search for the Phoenix Gem and in-Questigation. I also love how they incorporated the name into the book. I just thought that was really interesting. So the search for the Phoenix Gem was not just the name of the book, but also the name of the article that Sedalia wrote. And I love that an in-Questigation is something that Barley had told Sedalia, like what he would call her quest. So that's really cool. I just really love this story, guys. I can't wait to see what our next novel is going to be. I don't have it in mind yet, but I will definitely find it. Sorry, guys. Hey, it's fine. Sorry about that, guys. Alright, I gotta go. Bye, guys. I'll see you later.